Well, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the US or the world. We are back, Leslie and Leanne, my coach Leanne, and we are here. I hope you're not getting sick of us. So let us know that you have joined us for yet another session. Yesterday we did too, because Wednesday I could not get my internet to work. So we're here to talk about anger. And I want to talk a little bit about it. We can't go as long as we've been going yesterday because both Leanne and I have a hard stop about 10 to 10 because we have another meeting we have to get internet connection to and move over to a different platform to do a group meeting. And so we're going to have to leave about 9:50 or 10 to 1, wherever you are, East Coast, West Coast, or in between. But give us a shout out to let us know that you're here. First, we want to just say hi. So I don't see anybody in the feed, so that always makes me nervous that we're not live. So if you could just say, hey, Leslie, I'm here, you're live, that would give me a lot of comfort to keep going. Otherwise, I feel like I'm talking to the wind, and that's an awful thing to do. I don't know if you've ever talked in front of a camera, but it's kind of creepy. And especially if Leanne's there, but it's kind of creepy if you're all by yourself. So Stephanie, thank you so much. That is very helpful that you said hi. Hello, Meg. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. True confessions. Yesterday, I'm really good at some things and I'm really bad at other things, as you are, as all of us are. So I'm really good at answering your questions and I'm really good at some of this stuff. I'm really bad at remembering to announce the winner of the prize. So yesterday, I did not announce the winner of the prize. We had one and I didn't announce it. So if you're back here today, I'm waiting for my tech team to perhaps give me that name so I can tell you, you won yesterday. But if I don't hear from her or she threw it away or whatever by the end of the day, we're going to pick 2 winners today. Okay. So you get put in the pot for drawing an Amazon gift card, a Starbucks gift card, or a free book of mine that's signed for you on how much you participate. So we really want you to participate in this live event. But remember, this is my public Facebook page. So participate in positive ways, participate in encouraging ways, participate in hard ways, but make it more impersonal. Like, I have a friend who, or my neighbor is, or somebody I know. So if you're having to say something that might be a little bit dicey, if your mother-in-law read it, she's not necessarily connecting it to your life personally, or her son personally, right? So I just want to keep you safe, both physically as well as every other way. So just put your, wisdom on and discernment and know what you can say publicly and what you should not say publicly. And that leads us into our topic, anger, because sometimes when we're angry, we say things that we later regret. How many of you have done that? How many of you have blurted out something towards someone, personally or professionally, where later you said, oops, and not only oops, but I'm ashamed of the way I handled myself. I might have been angry, and that's, okay. There's nothing wrong with being angry. The Bible doesn't say anger itself is a sin, but the way that we handle our anger can be. And we might feel, anger is very deceptive because when we're really angry, we feel very righteous and we feel very right? I mean, I do, and I've said some awful things at times. I remember one time professionally, someone had done something unethical and I was rightly angry. She had told a medical issue that I was having to other staff in the hospital, which was not HIPAA laws at the time, but it was just a professional violation of my personal privacy. And I marched into her office and I gave her a piece of my mind. And, she felt horrible, but I also felt horrible. I did not feel good about who I was, how I showed up, how I handled things. And it kind of made things icky between us. So I just want you to know that we do get angry about stuff. We don't have the time to unpack why we get angry, but usually it's over injustice, that we feel that we've been wronged in some way, whether we're right or wrong. We feel we've been wronged, even if we make up an entire false story in our head that supports that. Maybe some of your husbands get angry because they're making up a story that you're having an affair, or they get angry because you're not submitting, or you're not being the kind of wife that you should be. And this is a kind of a story in their head they're making up, that you should be this perfect woman and you're not doing the right job. And so they're angry at you, and it's their story but it's affecting you because they don't know how to handle their anger. They don't know how to self-examine and look at it. So today we want to talk about reactive anger. And you're reacting to something that you don't like, that you discern as unjust. And it could be, or it could be some of your own story in that. Like, I don't deserve to be treated this way. I'm not putting up with this. I mean, look at all the people just in the grocery stores and road rage and all of that. That's all reactive anger. That they're, hey, I don't deserve to be cut off, and you don't. But now I'm going to retaliate with my anger. I'm going to bash into their car. I'm going to shoot somebody in that car. When we can do a lot of damage with our reactive anger. And so it's really important that we own it, that this is our job to control our temper. It's not anybody else's. Somebody can trigger us for sure, but we have to manage our triggers. That's what we're calling reactive anger. We're reacting to something. We're reacting to both an external stimulus, someone cut us off, an internal stimulus, our negative story, that shouldn't happen. Why are they doing that? That's wrong. They deserve to be punished. We're telling ourselves all that. And also a biological phenomena where our amygdala, which is the back part of our brain, kind of hijacks our rational thinking mind for a moment. And we just explode. And if we don't learn to recognize what's happening and put the brakes on, we can do a lot of damage. And here's one example. We've had a girl in Concord a while ago who reacted in rage when her husband was restraining her. And this was reactive anger. He shouldn't have been restraining her. It was wrong. She was feeling scared. All legitimate, totally legitimate. But in her reaction, she wiped her face across, her fist across her husband's face to push him out of the way, and her nail scratched him. Well, guess what he did? He called the police. She got arrested for domestic abuse. She lost custody of the children. And it's been a really hard journey for her to come back from that, to be able to even visit her kids. This is sometimes the consequence of our loss of control. This man who shot this child in reactive anger from his car and the child died, he's going to have to live with that the rest of his life, let alone his going to jail for reactive anger. And so we have to be mindful. The Bible says, in your anger, do not sin. So we want to give you a couple of strategies to calm yourself down in that moment. Leanne, you want to share one strategy?
I'm so glad that we're talking about this. And I think one strategy that I would encourage all of us, and this is something I have to practice, and this is a practice. This is something we have to continue to lean into and exercise, and that's pushing the pause button. Pushing the pause button. I forget who was it, Leslie, that said, gosh, I can't remember who it was. Count from 5, or if you're angry, count from 10 down to 1. If you're really angry, count from 100 down to 1. I forget who it was that said that. It's some guru in the world today. But I think when we can push the pause button for a moment and take a deep breath and understand that we don't have to answer right away. Sometimes when I get angry, if my temperature is already up, my words are already to hear. And if I can take a breath, it allows my words to go back to my heart and realize that out of the overflow of my heart, my mouth is going to speak. So if I take just a moment and push the pause button and give myself some time to think about what it is I want to say, what I truly want to say, instead of what I'm reacting from, something that they said, that helps me. And then I can even ask myself as I pause, what am I really angry at right now?
So we're not talking, somebody put in here that, sometimes maybe the example I gave could be also called self-defense. And it could be, but the way it was framed for the policeman in that moment, it wasn't. So obviously, if someone's attacking you, scratch them if you have to, push them if you have to, get out of there. And your anger is helping you have strength and energy to do that, right? But most situations that we're talking about here are not stranger danger or even a place where your husband is attacking you. This man wasn't attacking her. He was restraining her. So again, I understand she was reacting to that. You can't stop me from leaving this room. She was exercising her freedom to choose. But in exercising that, she would have been better served to call 911 and just say, my husband's restraining me and doesn't let me leave the room. right? She would have gotten more out of that anger than wiping his face and scratching it where she got accused of domestic abuse. And so I just want you to understand that the system isn't perfect. And so when you act out in a more public way than your covert narcissist husband might, or they're pushing your buttons and you flip out in a rage and your children see that, you're going to look like the crazy one. You're going to look like the sinful one. You're going to look like the abuser. And that's the last thing that you want to have as your storyline. Oh, that mom broke up our family. That mom is bipolar. Mom is, borderline personality disorder, and she can't handle anything. She's too weak. She's a wreck. The last thing that you want that, at least I think you don't want that. So let me just start by saying one of the ways that we control reactive anger is having a purpose to our life. We call it in Conquer our big circle. We call it in my ministry our big circle. So feelings are a part of our body and they're a part of, what happens to us. But when we have a identity, our purpose. So let me just say it. If my purpose is to be a good example to my children of a godly woman, if that's my purpose right now, or if my purpose is to honor God in all that I do, or if my purpose is to be strong under control, whatever purpose statement you might have, then how I use my anger has to align with that purpose, right? And so it helps me to get a handle on how I'm going to handle something when I'm rip-roaring mad, when I'm reacting to something. We react to all kinds of things. We can react to sexual temptation in a terrible way by giving into it, right? And so sometimes part of maturing is learning to recognize our feelings and learning to manage our emotions so that they don't get the final say on how we behave, right? So if I meet a stranger in a business meeting and they're flirting with me and telling me I'm wonderful and I'm feeling, oh my gosh, this is nice, and this feels so good, I could let those feelings make a decision for me that I would deeply regret, right? We all go through that. And so we don't. Why? Because we have a higher purpose. I don't want to shame myself. I don't want to be a cheater. I don't want to dishonor God by my life. I don't want to wake up in the morning and hate myself, right? Those are all things that we have to think about. But if we're just living by our emotions, whatever emotions they are, then we make a decision based on our feelings, and our culture is often validating that. If your feelings are there, that means that's your true north. No, it's not. And anger is one of the most deceptive emotions that you have. And so how many of you, the question was, deeply regret something you did in a moment of anger? If you regret your behavior after an emotion, understand you let that emotion get the best of you. So how do you not do that? First, have a purpose. Like, this isn't who I am. I don't do this. So I don't use the F word. I just don't. I don't care how angry I am. I might use a few other words, but I don't use that word. That's a boundary, an internal boundary that I've set for myself. I don't hit people. I don't care how angry I am. I don't hit people, right? There's certain boundaries of who I am that I set up on myself. This isn't what I do. I don't steal things, even if I'm tempted. I used to steal as a kid. So sometimes I still get tempted when I'm in a nice store and I try something and I'm thinking, I could just put my outfit on this hanger and walk out of here. And I think that, and I'm feeling tempted, but I don't do it. So reactive anger is a little bit harder because it's so strong. But that same process, so have a purpose. Why are you here? What do you want to leave as a legacy statement about who you are and how you behaved and how you handled yourself? The second thing is, Leanne said pause. So when your back brain, your amygdala, your reactive brain, so it's sort of like when you see a rope coiled in the yard or something and you think, oh my gosh, it's a snake. Your reactive brain, this part back here, just reacts, right? And you jump back. And then about 3 seconds later, you see, oh, it's just a hose, right? So it takes a little bit for your front brain to catch up. And so when you're reacting internally, like, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to strangle him, I'm going to, beat my kid. How many of you have felt like really hauling off and whacking your kid across the face when in a reactive anger moment? They're smart mouthing you, they're calling you a name, I hate you, and you just want to go, right? I hope you don't. Somehow you're saying, this isn't how I want to show up as a mom. That purpose statement is helping you control yourself in that moment. So you have to begin to get that for yourself, even if your husband is totally acting like a jerk. Now, if you're in danger, I'm not talking about self-defense. I'm talking about he's just acting like a jerk and you want to let him know in no uncertain terms, right? So give your brain those 10 seconds to kind of get coordinated with your reactive brain. Your reactive brain is fireworks. Your cognitive frontal cortex needs about 3 to 10 seconds. How you can do that is this. So you don't only have to count to 10, you can breathe 3 or 4 times, deep breaths. Focus, focus. How do you want to show up? How do you want to show up? How do you want to show up in this moment? You might have to take action. You might have to express yourself. And please understand that when you express yourself, you might have a really angry tone, as you should, right? So when I'm angry, I don't say, by the way, honey, I'm really upset that you did this. That just doesn't match what I feel. So I'm going to say, hey, this isn't okay with me. Stop. I might say that. All right. I might say it in that way, that loud. But I'm not going to add expletives. I'm not going to hit. I'm not going to do certain things that are in my control to do or not do. Right? So we're not saying you can't express yourself. You can't express yourself strongly. Do it if you need to. If you're angry, you're saying, this is not okay with me. I won't put up with this, even with your kids. Stop it. I'm not putting up with smart talk right now. Go to your room. Okay? So you can be angry, but you don't have to haul off and smack him in the face or your husband when he says something you don't like or when you're reacting to his porn or his affair. Of course, it's horrible. It's horrible. I had one woman take his computer in a fit of anger and just break it into pieces on the table. She wrecked the computer. She wrecked the table. It cost her. It cost her. Understandable, but regretful. So if you're in the habit of reacting and then having regrets about it, pay attention. We look at the whole, and I've brought this up before, and I don't want to make a political statement at all. But when Martin Luther King was doing the race things in the 60s, which I was a part of, his stance was, we're going to do nonviolent resistance. So we're going to resist the oppression, but we're going to do it in nonviolent ways. We're not going to be like them. We're going to be better than that. All right. Today, people who feel oppressed feel like violence is the way to get people's attention, that we're not putting up with this. And so they're burning down buildings, they're looting stores, they're doing stuff. And other people who aren't in the cause are doing some of that as well. But people who really believe that now violence, there's time for violence and we're going to do violence because we're not putting up with this anymore. Some people support that. The majority of us who are looking kind of think, I can't support this, right? I can't support this. And so when you're looking for advocacy help in a domestic destructive relationship from your church or from your friends, and you're acting like a wild person in your anger, oftentimes you will be painted as the bad guy. And I don't want that to happen to you. I want you to be above reproach so that when you go to your elders or you say, this is not okay with me, your husband doesn't have any evidence on you to make you look like the cause of all this. Right. Breathe, have your purpose. Go ahead, Leanne.
Yeah, breathe, have your purpose and pause. Leslie, what was coming up for me as you were sharing, and as I'm looking at the feed, something I've learned about myself and just the women that we work with, that when we are so reactive with our anger, we're giving our control of our emotions away to somebody else. And that can be I want to be the one who is in control of my emotions. Yeah. And so when we are reacting in that way, that can be really damaging.
Brandy is saying something really important, and I was going to bring this up, so I'm so glad you brought this up. Firefighters do not run into a burning building filled with emotion and react based on how they feel. That's right. They walk calmly, assessing the situation, and respond carefully and intentionally. John Glenn, who was an astronaut in one of the Apollo missions, talks about, when and I just went to mission to Mars and Epcot last week, and when you feel those G-forces and you're flying through the sky, if you don't know how to manage your emotions, I could say to myself, oh, this is just a ride. But if I was really in a rocket going up to Mars and seeing what I felt and felt what I felt, I would feel terrified. So those astronauts actually have to learn to manage not only their emotions, but their biological systems. So they said that even when things went wrong, and they have all those monitors on their heart, his heart rate did not go above 80 because he trained himself. Navy SEALs train themselves to stay calm in a provocative, dangerous, scary situation so that they can think properly and respond wisely. When the Bible tells us that we're to take thoughts captive, that we're to learn to manage our emotions, these are adulting tasks that we must learn. Even moms of 2-year-olds say, hey, you can't hit your baby sister when you're angry. Go calm yourself down. We have to teach ourselves and our children how to manage those emotions so those emotions don't get the best of us.
Yeah, our emotions don't need to manage us. We get to do them. And when we can take control over them, and that's part of that beautiful space, knowing your purpose, knowing your big circle, which is what we talk about so much here within this ministry, that's going to help us. If we know the reason why we're going to show up differently, we're going to have more strength in order to do that. And so when we ask ourselves, like I said, pause, breathe, and then ask ourselves, why am I so angry right now? What am I thinking about my current situation? And am I giving away all the power for my emotional well-being to somebody else? Because there are advantages and disadvantages to our anger. There is righteous anger, and then there is sinful anger, right? We can just say that in this space. And then, another thing that I like to do, Leslie, that helps, and I'm going to speak to the mom who spoke about her special needs son. I'm going to speak to the woman who's speaking about when her husband's playing mind games with her, who is being dismissed. I'm seeing you in the feed. And here's the deal. Part of our work to do is knowing what we really want out of the current situation and to see past the pain and know what is it that I really want out of this conversation. And that gives us an opportunity to connect with God, to be present, not to be so fearful, because a lot of our anger comes out of fear and frustration. We're feeling threatened, either emotionally, physically, spiritually, sexually, whatever. But just giving ourselves, what do I really want? And then is my anger, the way I'm reacting or responding, going to get me what I want? Or is it going to get me stuff that, that is not the area or ground I want to walk on? Because it can produce a lot of anxiety for us.
And here's James 4 says, what is causing all the quarrels and the conflicts among you? So you're getting angry and you're biting and devouring each other. What's causing that? And he puts his finger on it. So I do want to add a tail to what Leanne just said, is that you're not getting what you want. Now, here's the deceptive part. When we believe that what we want is totally legitimate, then we sometimes give ourselves permission to force the issue. Right? So, for example, when your husband has this belief that his right to sex with you is totally legitimate and he's not getting what he wants because you said no, then he can force you or badger you or keep you up all night or manipulate you or guilt trip you, or out of his frustration of you saying, no, I'm not getting what I want. Or your kids, you want them to obey you. Of course you do. And when you're not getting what you want out of this situation, I just want them to listen. I just want them to do their homework. I just want them to eat. I just want them to go to their room. I just want them to shut up. Whatever it is that you are recognizing that you want, and you're not getting what you want. This is often where we justify escalating our anger, because when we scare someone enough, we can get what we want. If someone holds a gun to my head, I'm going to give them my purse, right? I'm going to, even if I don't want to, I'm going to do it. Right. And so is that the way you want to show up in relationships? Is that the way that you want to do relationships? We're here. You're here because you're in a relationship where you feel you don't trust someone and you're scared of them. So forcing someone to do what you want through temper, through angry mechanisms, is never going to give you what you really want, which is connection and intimacy and fellowship with that person, because it breaks trust. You can't trust someone and feel good with someone that you're afraid of, including your children are being afraid of you. And so it's really important that you take this to heart and that you understand that anger can be totally legitimate. You can want something that's totally legitimate, at least in your mind, and you still have to sometimes handle reality, which is you don't get everything you want all the time. Like, I want this driver to drive faster. I want people to be polite. I want, my kids to listen to me. I want my husband to be faithful or honest or whatever. Those aren't bad wants. Those are perfectly fine wants. but we don't always, I want to be healthy. I don't want to get COVID. You know, I have somebody in COVID in my house right now. I don't want certain things in life, but I don't want cancer, but I might get it. How do we handle not getting what we want is part of maturity. We don't always get what we want. That's reality. And so if we just are constantly reacting in anger because I should always have what I want, that's more of an entitled mindset that is characteristic of destructive people. And we don't want to be one of them. That's why we're here, ladies. You might not be able to change your husband, but you can work on you. And that doesn't make for a good marriage. So about the parenting question, because there's a couple of them. I'm going to just give you something that will be really helpful for you in any relationship. You show up in a way that you're proud of yourself. So I can be an excellent wife. I can be a good parent, and I still may have a lousy relationship with this person. I can be a good employee, and I still may not like my boss because he's a bully, he's unfair, he treats people rudely, right? And so your job is to discipline and parent your kid in the best way you know how in the moment. Their job is to obey. If they don't obey, their job is to respect. That's what God says. As a child, your job is to obey. Your job is to respect, honor your parent. If they choose not to, you can't control that. All you can do is implement consequences for their choices in a way that might invite them to make different choices, right? So, for example, my daughter's pulling her hair out because her kids aren't doing their homework right, and so she wants them to do their homework. There's nothing wrong with that, but yelling at them isn't going to work, right? So the consequences are, I guess we don't get to watch TV or iPad until homework's done and I can check it. Well, guess what? Now they're making decisions differently. They're deciding to do their homework without a big battle, because it's not up to her to make them do their homework. It's up to her to provide the environment where it's most likely that they will make a better choice. Right? Kids are kids. If you have candy for dinner and carrots for dinner, which do you think they're going to pick? iPad and TV or homework? What do you think they're going to pick? Right? So your job is to be mature enough to know what you can do and what consequences. So if you desire your husband to be honest, you desire him to stop raging, that's totally fine. If he doesn't choose to do that, what do you need to do to not react in a sinful way? And what do you need to do to say, I'm not living like this? What consequences do you need to put in place so that it makes it more likely, like calling the police, that he makes different choices in the future, right?
Well, you know what? I love that you're bringing that up, because that's some boundaries that we can put on ourselves, some internal boundaries. And I love Matthew 5:48 says this, and I'm not sure of the translation, but I love this iteration of the passage. It says, grow up, you're kingdom girls. Now live like it. Live out your God-created identity. Live generously and graciously toward others, the way God lives toward you. And I thought, I just love that whole idea of remembering who we are in the midst, because anger can be very, very contagious. Reactive anger, ungodly anger, sinful anger can be contagious. And guess what? Righteous anger can become contagious too. We get to model for our kids what it looks like if we are angry, but we're still remaining in that alignment piece, Leslie, that you talked about. It's okay to do that. And I just think God's word has so much to say about showing up and taking control over how we show up. Cain was really mad with his brother. He was furious. And what did he do? His anger was not righteous at all.
And I think that the deceptive part of it is when we think our anger is righteous, we still act out in sinful ways. And so we can have righteous anger. So, here's an example. So I can't think of her name, but the mother who started Mothers of Drunk Drivers, MAD. Okay. So her daughter or son was killed by a drunk driver. Of course she would be angry. She's sad, but she's angry. This man had a trail of DUIs and his license was never taken away. So what does she do in her anger? Well, she could go over and shoot him if she felt that angry. She had righteous anger, but she might have acted unrighteously. So she used that righteous anger to petition the courts to politicize this issue and change laws. So her anger energized her in positive ways. And my anger at the injustice of church the way they handle women, and this whole thing led me to start this whole ministry. All right. I could have just, been angry and just said, oh, forget it. Nobody does anything. God's not. I could have gone that direction. Satan would have wanted me to. So our righteous anger about injustice and oppression and wrong, sinful things can motivate us to do good things. So don't think you can't have anger. You should have anger at certain things, but be careful that how you react is in alignment, and perhaps better take a breath and decide how you want to respond. I want to open it up for some questions, but before we do, the winner is Laura Baum, Baum. And so, Laura, we want you to email our staff at martha@leslievernick.com to claim your prize. And you get to choose a Starbucks gift card, an Amazon gift card, or I will physically mail you a copy of whatever book you want of mine, and I will sign it for you. So your choice, you get to pick, and contact Martha@leslievernick.com to claim that. All right, here's a question.
Do you want me to read it for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Here it is. What are some techniques to help me recognize that I'm getting overheated so I can calm down before I lose it? And, I love this question. Can I just share a passage of scripture along with that has really, really helped me? And then I can't wait to hear what you have to say about some other techniques. But I found that going to God's word before I go into full-blown verbal vomit could be this. It's Proverbs 14:29. Those who control their anger have great understanding. Those with a hasty temper make mistakes. And so I'm going to say one technique that I realize I'm getting overheated is when I'm quick to answer instead of being slow to speak. So to you, my friend.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to make an analogy. I've made this before, but when you're 2 years old and you're used to pooping in your diaper and you have to make this transition to pooping in the toilet, there has to be some bodily awareness that I got to poop, right? Before that, you never had to think about that before. I got to pee. You just peed. Whenever you felt like peeing, you peed. Whenever you felt like pooping, you pooped. But now that you're maturing, you've got to recognize your body, your bowels are moving, or your bladder is full, and you have to start learning how to pay attention so that you have time to get to the bathroom and go to the bathroom. That takes some time, right? So in the same way that we learn to physically control our bowels and our bladder so that we don't humiliate ourselves in middle school, because we know how to do that. We're not pooping and peeing in our pants anymore, hopefully. The same thing goes for our emotional life. We have to learn to identify, I am getting worked up. I am getting tense. I am getting stressed out. I am getting depressed. I am getting angry. Whatever feeling we have, it happens in our body. Sometimes I'll be driving and I'll see my knuckles are all white because I'm so stressed out at the traffic. My body is tense. Okay, now I'm aware. Okay, calm down, let it go. I know what to do, but I can't do it until I'm aware of it. So there's lots of things, lots of teaching online. We do some of this in Conquer about how you can recognize what your body is saying to you. Your jaw is clenched, your teeth are clenched, your heart is racing, your stomach is churning, your neck is tight. All those kind of things are biological signs that you're getting worked up, right? Just like you're feeling like I'm going to go to the bathroom. You have to pay attention so that you give yourself margin, because you can't hold it endlessly, right? You can't hold it endlessly biologically. Sooner or later, you're going to poop on yourself if you don't get to the toilet. Sooner or later, your body can't do it anymore, right? And in the same way, emotionally, if you put yourself in toxic situations to the breaking point, some of you have had breakdowns. You can't do it anymore. And you're in a mess. You're depressed. You're flipping out. You're not handling your emotions very well. And so this is part of, again, maturing. And we really this is one of our main goals in our group of Conquerors, helping you learn these things so that you can handle yourself in a mature way, even in a very toxic situation. It doesn't mean you stay in the toxic situation. It might mean that you are now strong enough to leave because you're not needing this person to take care of you anymore. But we would love to invite you to the webinar. We've been doing that all week. We're going to do a webinar. I'm going to do the webinar on Wednesday of how long. I just got an email today from a missionary overseas, and she's given her husband all these chances. And she says her church is pressuring her mission board is pressuring her to give him another chance. And she's going, like, I've already given him 5 chances, and he's good for about 8 months. And then he does the same thing all over again. How many times do I keep trying? It's a really legitimate question. And how do I know he's really, for 8 months, he was showing me fruit of repentance, and then he slides back. How do I know? Things are really different. And there are a couple key indicators that he's showing right now that things are not different, even if he's not acting out in his usual ways. And so I want to give you those tools so that you can recognize that. So sign up for the webinar, show up live so you can ask your questions on our private community page that you can ask those questions more personally. It's at noon and at 7:30, and you don't get to go if you didn't sign up, and you don't even get the abbreviated replay. So if you can't show up on Wednesday, you can get a replay, but it won't have the Q&A time, and that often is the best part, where you really get to ask your questions and hear some of those answers, just like we're doing now. And so you really want to show up live. It's at noon Eastern time and 7:30 Eastern time. Both times will be live. So circle your calendar, go to the 29th right now on Wednesday, circle yourself 2 hours, 1 hour to listen to the webinar, just like we're talking about stuff here. And it's helpful. I'm sure it's helpful for you. And then we're going to have an hour of interaction, just like we're doing now, but on a private space. All right. So, but you have to sign up. So sign up for there, and let's take another question.
It says, my problem is not my husband, but my teenage daughter that has ODD. How can I learn to manage her rage episodes better?
So I'm not sure of the question. I don't know if you're trying to manage her rage. You can't manage her rage, right? And I think this is all you can do is manage your rage at her rage. Right? So each of us are responsible for our own feelings. Just like you can't manage her poop, you can't manage her rage. That's something she has to learn to do. You can give her consequences if she doesn't manage her rage, just like you might for a person who's not managing their biological systems either as a child, but you can't manage her rage. How many of you have tried to manage 2-year-olds' rage, even if they don't have ODD? When they're in a rage and they're throwing a fit, you can't manage their rage. You can invite them to manage their rage, like stop it, calm down, let's go take a time out, or you're going to bed. Depending on how little the child is, you have a little bit more power over them physically, like picking them up, but you don't have that kind of power over your daughter. So the best way that you manage your rage at her rage is to give yourself a timeout. I'm not dealing with you, because when a rage doesn't have an audience, it's really boring to have a rage all by yourself, right? So you say to her, I'm not able to hear you when you talk to me this way. I'm not willing to hear you when you talk to me this way. I'm going into my room. Go into your room, close the door if you have to lock it, put earplugs on so you can't hear all the horrible things she's saying to you through the door. And you just let her learn that this is pretty boring to have a rage with no audience, right? And then when she's quieter, you can come down and come out and say, I'm willing to listen if you can talk constructively. But if you're going into that place again, I'm not willing to listen. And you continue to exit the situation. And I would do that with a husband who rages too. And if he's raging in a dangerous way, throwing things, breaking things, threatening, putting holes in walls, I would call 911 and say, my husband is scaring me and I need the police to show up at my door. Right? So that he learns, oh, when I do this, this is what happens. And I could actually be arrested for this. Right? So this is what you have to do to manage your rage at their rage. You cannot manage their rage, even as a 2-year-old, even as an infant. I had a raging infant because he was colicky, and I tried everything. I couldn't manage his rage. When he decided to calm down or when he felt better, he managed his rage. I couldn't do it even then. You can try to comfort him. You can try to soothe him. You can walk with all those things, but they calm down when they calm down. Right?
Well, and I think so much of that is that whole piece of self-awareness too. Like you just said, realize what's coming up inside of you, mom, and, be self-aware that, they're going to do what they're going to do, and you get to show up as you want to show up. And that's going to be a lot of our work to do. So sign up for the webinar, because Leslie's going to give you a tremendous amount of tools during that webinar, because like we shared, anger is contagious, and what we want healthy anger to be contagious, not unhealthy anger. God's word says if we're wise and if we understand his ways, we're going to live a life of steady goodness so that good can come forth. Because conflict, it's going to happen, What are we going to do with the conflict that we're given and the aggravation that we feel? And here's, another question, Leslie, that's coming up. Are you ready for another one, or did you have something else to share?
I just want to give one more verse. So going back to this child, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up strife. So when you're dealing with an angry person, and this would be true in business, this would be true in any environment, even, negotiators who are talking to terrorists or hostage takers or all those kind of things. When you meet anger with anger, it's like meeting gasoline with a match. So when you meet anger with anger, so when someone's in a rage, and just as a picture, you're in a rage, your credit card, wouldn't work, and you were in a big hassle, and you call the credit card company, and you're in a rage, and you're blah, 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 you're just, I'm going to quit this card, and your customer service person says, I am so sorry that you had to go through that. What happens? Your rage calms. When the credit card person says, I don't have to listen to this, I'm hanging up, you are going to be exploding, right? So when rage meets rage or anger meets anger, it's not pretty. So the Bible says a strategy here is a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up strife. So the mother to daughter, or even mother to husband, hey, I would really want to hear what you're having to say, but I can't. It just makes me too anxious when you're yelling at me. So when you calm down, we can have a better conversation. All right. And so you're having a boundary, but you're speaking in a gentle way that doesn't continue to fuel that rage. Because even when you say, you're not talking to me that way, all right, that is just like giving them an invitation to punch you, right? And I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm just saying, beware. The Bible tells us that anger stirs up anger, and it's very contagious, and it's dangerous. It can be very dangerous. I'm not going to tell because we're going to run out of time, but let's do the next question.
Yeah, may I just share a thought on that? Ladies, we're just going to science will show us that we have twice as many words to use a day as the men in our lives. All right. So I just want to share another passage of scripture that's helped me because I'm a wordy. And when I get angry and when I get triggered, I can overspeak. I can overtalk. I can say too many words. God's word says this in Proverbs 17:27. A truly wise person, which is who I want to be, uses few words. A person with understanding is even-tempered. And so that's another strategy. Say what you want to say, but be tighter and concise and clear. Because sometimes we can overspeak, we can justify, we can try and explain. Sometimes people are not going to get us. And this goes into our next question. And it says this: some husbands purposefully aggravate and escalate a situation, then they collect evidence and brag about it, and they hold it over their spouse. What are some tips for dealing specifically with this? And keeping our words tight is one. Holding on to self-control and being wise is another, because they will collect evidence, just like we've spoken about before, Leslie, on these lives. If we're flying off the handle and we're acting, like a crazy girl, which I have done in the midst of my own anger, my own frustration, my hurt, my fear, I can act that way. And I can give somebody a lot of ammunition if I am not self-controlled, if I am not remembering who I am in Christ and whose I am. That's part of my work to do, and not let anger control me. I don't want that anger to have a hold on me. So what else do you have about that one? What other tips?
Nothing. I just want to get to some more questions so we can, because we're going to have to close in a couple of minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the question. That was the question about how do we keep it from escalating. So did you have anything to add to that escalation?
I think sometimes the best way to keep it from escalating is say, I need a timeout. Instead of saying, you need to take a timeout, because they're not going to do it, to say, you know what? I'm not sure how to answer this. I'm not sure how I want to respond. And I don't want to respond in the wrong way. So I'm going to take a timeout and just give some thought and prayer to what you've just said. And those can buy you time, because we can't, when someone endlessly provokes you, if they're going like this, whether it's verbally or physically, pretty soon, if you keep letting them do this, and you're going to go, you just can't help it. So you have to get yourself out of the situation that they're provoking. And the best way to do that is kindly by having a boundary. Not, you can't treat me this way. That doesn't work, because they're going to go, you want to bat? Watch me. Right. But you can say, you've said a lot right now, and I need some time to process it. I need some time to think. I'm going to go, take a walk and think about what you had to say. And I'll come back, and, when I'm calmer, maybe I can answer it in a respectful way. And go take care of you. Just like if you were in that moment and you realized, oh my gosh, I'm going to throw up. I'm going to throw up. I'm so upset. I'm going to throw up. You wouldn't just sit there and go, bleh. You wouldn't do that. You would say, I feel it. I'm going to go take care of me before I can finish this conversation. In the same way, if you're going to throw up emotionally, if you've gotten to that point or you're feeling it,
So healthy.
Don't think you're going to hold it. You're not. So now you have to go and throw up in your journal. Go call your counselor, your coach. Go take a walk and talk to the Lord. Do something to get that out. Process it a bit, and then come back and say, what did I just learn about how I want to speak about this? It's important. I've had those instances where I've written 25 letters to someone, and it helped me vomit it all out before I got the essence of what I really wanted to say and how I wanted to say it.
I love that, Leslie. That's so good. And that goes right. That answers like 3 questions that we have gotten. Is take care of yourself. And sometimes, knowing what we want, sometimes that reiteration of letter after letter after letter, getting to the core, what is it that I really need right now? And sometimes that's that whole self-awareness piece that we work so hard with our ladies on.
And let me just say one other thing in this. You are a human being. You are not Superman. Even Jesus, said, I got to get away here. The crowd is too much. It's aggravating me. He didn't quite say it that way, but I think he physically had his limits. He was tempted in every way as we are, it says in the Bible. We have a faithful high priest who understands what it feels like to be in a human body, to get provoked, to be dismissed, to be disrespected, to be abused. He knows what that feels like. And he had to learn obedience in the things that he suffered. So Jesus didn't come all mature. He came as a baby. He had to learn these things. And so I want you to know that he understands our struggle and our temptation. He's not expecting you to act like a robot and take everything like okay. If you need space to vomit and poop and pee like we have to, physically or emotionally, take care of you. Get out of the dynamic here and go take care of you. Rest, recharge, regroup, call your support system, do the things that you need to do so that if you go back into that environment, just like if you were in an environment and you smelled something foul, you'd leave that environment. And if you had to go back in, you'd wear a mask or you'd wear a gas mask so that you didn't keep getting that toxic fume inside of you, right? There's nothing wrong with stewarding yourself in these situations. And this is so important so that you don't react in negative ways and add more toxic situation to the environment.
And that's something that we can do. We can control our responses and what we say back, and we can take care of us. And, there's been questions in our feed, Leslie, about a calm way to convince someone else to listen, whether it be our husband or our kiddos. And one thing that I'll say is you get to model that calm. Here's a tip that I do. I don't have it right now because I couldn't find my pen, but I've been writing the word calm on my wrist. It helps me to remember, calm down, Leanne, bring it down, because our temperature can get high. And if our kids see us modeling it, it's going to rub off. It's contagious too. Calm is contagious too. And what science has found, if we lower our voice and bring that to the table, it brings the temperature in the room down. So that's another strategy that will help our kids when they're feeling derailed.
Right. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up strife. But I think that it's also important. You can't make someone listen. Listening. So I remember working in a counseling situation, and she goes, he doesn't listen to me. He goes, I heard you, like this. I heard you. In other words, I heard you, but I don't really care about what you said. I'm not listening. I'm not valuing you. And I think this is really crucial for you ladies right now, because we so want to be seen, heard, and known. That's in our DNA as human beings, not just as women, but more so as women. We want to be seen, known, and heard. And Jesus was really clear about that. Sometimes people don't listen. People don't listen. Judas didn't listen. The Pharisees didn't listen. Jesus says in Matthew, I think it's 7, after he talks about relationships, finally he concludes with, don't throw your pearls before swine, lest they turn on you and trample you with them. In other words, some people won't listen. You give them your pearls, you share things with them that are important to you, and they don't care. So please get over the notion that you can convince someone to listen to you. All you can do is invite someone to listen to you. And that's legitimate. I want you to listen to me. I want you to hear me out. I want you to hear what I have to say. And then stop. Are you willing to do that? And they may or they may not. And if they're not, don't keep talking, because you are casting your pearls before swine, and someone will take those pearls and they will crush them and humiliate you and sometimes use those things very much against you. So beware that not everybody is willing to listen.
Well, and that's where wisdom comes in. I love that you brought that up, Leslie, because we can invite somebody in, but they're not always going to receive our invitation.
Yeah.
And then, Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we need to run because we have another meeting in 10 minutes, and it takes me about that long to figure out the tech for the next place, because I've got to go to Zoom and be the host and then make Leanne the host and all of that kind of stuff. So we have so enjoyed being with you. Our next Facebook Live is on Monday, I think, and we are talking about, let me just see. Oh, I'm going to be talking with you about the difference between your internal story and your external story. Now, that may not make a whole lot of sense to you, so let me give you an example. So my external story is my mom is dying. That's true, right? What's my internal story? How am I doing that fact? Am I doing it as, oh my gosh, God is not here and he's not really good, and I don't know why this is happening to me, and this is so unfair, and why does this have to happen now? I'm so busy, I don't have the time to. Is that my internal story? Or is my internal story, God, I'm so grateful that I'm here, that I have this opportunity to be with my mom and my family. What's good that's happening here? So you see, there's an external story in life. I'm in a concentration camp. This is horrible. I don't want to be here. I'm in a destructive marriage. This is horrible. I don't want to be here. And then this is internal story about how I'm going to do this story. If you think about any story in life, Frozen, Gladiator, The King's Speech, there's this external story that creates all kinds of drama and obstacles in their life. But it's the internal story that creates the end of the story. And so I want to help you see that difference, so that when you're in this trial of this difficult relationship that you're in, you have agency here. You have agency. Even if you're in a concentration camp, you have a decision to make on how you show up there, right? And how you do concentration camp, even if you can't escape in the moment. If you can escape, escape. But if you can't, how do I do concentration camp, right? That's your internal story. So we'll talk about that on Monday. We got to go, and I will.
1 second.
The prize goes to, I hope
you told me to remind you, the prize for today goes to Amy, Amy Main. Email Martha
Amy
at Martha. Yep.
Yeah, Amy Main is for today. The other one was for yesterday, but Amy Main. So you please contact Martha at leslievernick.com. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care. God bless.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Leslie.
Thanks, Leanne. I'll see you in a couple minutes.